Hi friends, welcome to Love Good Lane. My name is Matthew. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I think today I'm going to do a video style in the manner in honor of one of my favorite YouTube channels, Hands That Cook. Her name is Linda, and unfortunately she's no longer posting new videos, but the channel, at least when I'm recording this video, the channel Hands That Cook is still up on YouTube, and there is a treasure trove of videos that you can watch of her preparing all different kinds of recipes. And yeah, she's my favorite. In the video, the camera was always trained right on the countertop or the prep area, and you could see her hands occasionally, but that's it, hence the name Hands That Cook. And she is just a wonderful home cook, and I really appreciated that style and those recipes. And anyway, so that's what I'm going to do today after I say hello to you. But what we're going to prepare is a chocolate pie. I know that I have prepared some pies in the past, but pie is my favorite thing. And so I could talk about pie and make pie from now until a month of Tuesdays in the future. So that's what we're going to do today. But one thing with a custard pie, or in this case, the chocolate pie, is that we have to blind bake the crust, and I have not done that in a video yet, so we're going to explore that. I'll show you how I do it, and then after the crust is done and it's cooled a little bit, then we'll prepare the chocolate filling. Really easy, really tasty. So I'll be right back and we'll jump into our crust. Okay, so let's get to it. In my bowl here, I have 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt that I have whisked together. Make sure that that salt is evenly distributed. And now I'm going to take 2/3 cup of vegetable oil, and I'm going to put that in. Let's see. That way, so you can see even better. Okay. So we're going to put the oil in. My favorite utensil to mix up my pie crust is just a plain old fork. That's what I like best. We're going to mix this around. Doesn't take long to come together. What you want to do is try to get all of the dry flour mixed in, so you don't have pockets of the white. You can kind of, hopefully you can see that I'm sort of smushing the pie dough to that flour. It's there. Don't miss any on the sides. Okay. This is my favorite pie crust. It's the easiest to work with. It's flavorful. It's flaky. You don't have to chill it before you bake it. It's just, I love it. It's perfect. And in this case, the oil is taking the place of butter or shortening as our fat. Okay, so now in here, in this little dish, I have some ice water, and I'm going to put in about 2.5 tablespoons of ice water. And then we just sort of fold and mix and stir and cut that in. And you'll be able to see, I think the technical culinary term for this is we're hydrating the pie crust. We're hydrating the flour. And you'll be able to see it changes texture, or in the appearance anyway, of of the pie crust when you have evenly mixed that in. Okay, that's about good. Okay, next up we need, I'll move that over here. I've got some wax paper. Lay some of that down. I don't know what that is. We'll get that out of here. We actually need 2 sheets. Now I'm just going to put this pie dough onto our wax paper. I got a chunk here stuck to my fork. Get that off. Now I just take my hands and I kind of roughly form it into a disc before we start to roll it. It just kind of gives it a head start so you're not doing so much with the rolling pin. Get out my kitchen towel. Okay. Go. Now we put this other sheet of wax paper on top. You want to line it up approximately. You don't have to go crazy with it, but you'll see why in a moment. Slide that over. I know there are fancy methods for rolling out your pie crust where you do it and then you rotate the dough and all the stuff. I just kind of roll out from the center and I switch up the direction that I'm doing. And that works pretty good for me. Also, I've done so many pie crusts now that I can kind of feel when I feel on top of the wax paper with my hand. I can feel the thickness and where it's uneven, like maybe it's a little thicker. So I generally roll it to the edge of the wax paper. And we'll adjust it a little bit there. Then work it out. You want it to be a little bit bigger than your pie plate. I'm going to use a 9-inch pie plate. And there's no top crust for this because it's a traditional cream pie or pudding pie, or whichever way you want to call it. But it's a chilled pie, so we don't need a top crust. If we were doing a top crust, then I use different measurements for this crust. It doesn't have to be as big, so I don't use as much. I cut it in half for my top crust. But anywho, this could be a little bit longer down that way. Okay. And you can just kind of eyeball it. I think that will be just fine. So now we peel the top layer off like that. Voila. And then this is how we do. Kind of line it up so that it's in the center as much as you can. And then I slide my hand under, flip it over, and then I pull it taut, pull the wax paper taut, and then you peel it off. If you don't pull it taut, then sometimes you can get a rip. I just ripped the paper, I didn't rip the crust. But that's one of the beautiful things about this pie crust is that if you did get a tear or a chunk of it is missing or off or what, it doesn't matter. You can just easily patch it together and no one would ever know. Unlike a butter crust where you actually can tell if it's been patched like that or not. Then the other thing is we want to ease it into your pie plate. You don't want it to be stretched and you don't want any loose bubbles or pockets because then it's going to bake up funny. So you want to ease it down into the pie plate. spot here. Just gonna pat it down a little bit, get that air bubble out there. Okay. And then I know a lot of people use a knife. I just use the same fork that I mixed the pie crust with, and I'm just gonna roughly go around the edge, get the extra off. My grandma, my mom's mom, was a big pie maker, and almost always she decorated her crust, she crimped her crust with the tines of fork. I'm sure you've seen that, and I do that sometimes. There's another method that's similar to the finger pinch, but I kind of put my own spin on it. That's the one I do the most. Okay, so now we're going to take the edge and I'm going to fold it under. Then as I fold it, I'm just kind of very gently sort of tapping it together with my fingers so that that folded over edge combines with bottom crust. If you do have any cracks or whatnot there at the top fold, just sort of pinch and pat, and it's fine. I also love that this crust recipe, it doesn't matter if it's raining outside or what's going on, if it's extra hot in your kitchen that day or whatever is going on, it doesn't matter. It turns out great every time. Because with a lot of doughs and pastry and things, it does matter. It will be affected by what the weather is and kind of what the conditions are in your kitchen. And that also happens to your flour too. Have you noticed that? Do you do a lot of baking and or cooking? You do something on a really rainy day or a really hot summer day, you kind of have to be flexible and switch things up. Maybe you have to add a little more water. Maybe you have to let it bake a little longer, or whatever the case may be. Almost done. I hope this doesn't seem hard, because it's really not. I'm just folding it over and then pinching it. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. And you know what? I'm just kind of feeling like this is kind of pretty. Just a molded, rounded edge. I don't think I'm going to do any crimping today. I'm just going to leave it like that. I think that's really nice. Tapped in. Okay. This extra out of there. Okay, the next thing we need to do, I forgot to get it out, but it's right here. We need to take a piece of parchment, and we're going to put parchment in the bottom of our, well, on top of our bottom crust. But here's a little trick that I learned by watching people on YouTube. Take your parchment, and we're going to crinkle it up. And then undo it a little bit, and then I'm going to do that once or twice more. This way we get the non-stick effect of the parchment, but all those little folds and crinkles, it makes it a little more flexible so that it fits down into our, what's that? Piece of pepper or something. Okay. So, undid my parchment, and I'm gonna just gently pat it down in there. And you don't have to go nuts with it being completely against the edges, but you want it to be as close as you can without having to work it against the dough too much. And then I have my trusty container of dried beans. I've had these for, oh gosh, at least 10 years. I actually have another container in the pantry because sometimes I'm baking more than one pie at a time. Okay, so I poured my dried beans in there. I'm just going to kind of even it out. This is acting as our pie weight. And this is so that as we bake, as we blind bake, that's what this is called, as we blind, and that's when you bake your crust without any filling in it. This is so that as we blind bake our crust, it doesn't puff up and get sort of misshapen. This will hold the shape and kind of keep it tamped down. I have the oven already preheated to 375. You can blind bake at a higher temperature, but this 375 is my preferred temperature, at least for this crust recipe. If you do a higher temperature, it might not take as long, but also then you have to be more careful to watch it so that you don't get it too brown or certainly not burnt. Anyway, so I'm going to put this into my preheated 375 oven, and we're going to bake it for approximately 15 minutes or so. And then I'll be back. Okay, so we are ready to start working on our filling for the chocolate pie. And in this little saucepan, we're going to put 1 cup of sugar. We have 5 generous teaspoons of cornstarch. I want to leave any in the bowl there. Okay. And then this is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to use my whisk. Whisk that together a little bit. Good. Take this out of there for a second. And then next, we want to add our, oh, I guess I need to get that out, don't I? We've got 2.5 cups of milk. I'm using whole milk, so I think that's going to be a better fit for this pudding, this custard. Because it has a higher fat content. Oops, we had a little bit of salt left in our bowl, in our dish. Okay. And then, but before we do the milk, I have chopped up here 1 ounce of unsweetened chocolate. Sometimes people call it baking chocolate. But we're going to get that in there as well. I'll have better luck with my finger. There. Got some chocolate on my there. And we're just going to use our whisk to stir that around. Now to this mixture, we're going to add in our 2.5 cups of milk. And we're going to stir and keep an eye on this because we want the chocolate to be melted and we want it to come to a simmer just with some little bubbles around the edge. But we want to keep it moving so that it doesn't burn, and we don't want it to be too active of a boil, just with some little bubble. There's some little bubbles in there right now, but it's because I'm whisking and I just poured in the milk. So you want to do this at like medium low temperature setting. You don't want to do it too high because it will potentially scorch your filling, and or you might get some thickened business on the bottom, but before that heat can reach all the way through. Okay. Now, while we're waiting on that, also in this bowl, I have 3 egg yolks, just the yolks. Now, if you are a meringue lover, then you can save the egg whites from these 3 egg yolks to use when you whip up your meringue. My family prefers whipped cream on their chocolate pie, so that's what we're doing. We're not going to do a meringue today, but there you go. Or you could add those egg whites to some scrambled eggs or breakfast things you got going. Okay. I can feel that it's getting very warm, so it's not going to take long. We just have to wait a little bit for it to happen. But once it happens, then we're kind of good. Once we see those little bubbles and it's thickened and the chocolate's melted, we just want to let it simmer for about a minute. And then that's it. Then we're going to temper it. If you don't know what that means, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we're going to temper the egg yolks and then add them back in to here. Give it a stir, another cook sesh for 30 seconds to a minute, and that's it. While we're waiting on this, I'm going to grab our extracts. We need some vanilla extract and some almond, and I know that I have both. I do. We're going to add these off the heat, though, at the very end. Oh, I got a little chocolate on my counter. Our pie crust has a couple minutes left before it's done. And you don't need to worry about your pie crust being like a golden brown. It may get golden brown on the edges or in parts, but oftentimes, at least with this recipe in my oven, it will be baked. It'll be cooked, but it's not going to be golden brown, certainly not a deep golden brown. You can tell with our filling mixture here that we're getting closer because the color is deepening as that chocolate melts. The reason why we chop up the 1 ounce of unsweetened chocolate is because it just gives it a head start, a little easier for it to start to melt. If you leave it in bigger chunks, it's going to take longer for it to melt. Okay, getting closer. I need to get this one. I could use a ladle. I'm just going to use a big spoon, I think. Clear the decks for these. Let me move this up a little bit because I want to show you what I do with the crust. Get a hot pad out and need a bowl. Bowl will do just fine. I'm going to adjust that handle so I don't bump it. Okay, so here we are, our baked pie shell. And let's see, usually I don't have to, yeah, it's okay. The parchment paper, I'm going to take all four corners and I'm going to lift it up. We don't want it to cool with the pie weights or the beans in there because obviously it'll take longer. So I just transfer mine over like that. And then you do want to let your beans fully cool before you put them back into your container or if you're using a Ziploc. Because if you close it up while they're still warm, there's the chance that you could get a little condensation, a little moisture in there, which you don't want. So you just set those aside, let those cool off completely before you put them away. And here you have it. Let me throw away our parchment. And there we have our beautiful pie crust. So I'm going to move this over there to let it keep cooling. It doesn't have to be completely cool before we add the filling. But obviously, since it's essentially like a pudding pie, you want it to be as cool, or I should say, the cooler the crust is, the faster your filling is going to set up. Because this is not a pie that you can rush in terms of the set and chill, because it's not going to be firm enough. You're not going to be able to slice it very well. So you do want it to be nice and firm. I'm doing this in the early to mid-afternoon, and then it will have plenty of time to set up further in and chill in the fridge before we dive into some chocolate pie later tonight. I think maybe I should have turned this up a little more initially because it's kind of taking longer. It actually worked out because then we got to talk about our crust when it came out of the oven and a few other things, but we can get this going a little bit more. I did set my eggs out a little bit before we got started with this so that they could be more at room temperature. And I find that most of the time for baking and or if you have to separate the eggs, it's easier to do if they're not really cold straight from the fridge. Now I can hear this, so I know that we're moving and grooving. So I'm going to keep on stirring a little bit more consistently now, because we want it to thicken and just barely start to bubble, but not too much more than that. Oh, there we go. I can feel it, my spoon, especially towards the bottom. It's finally starting to maybe I was too conservative. My temperature, but better that way. Take another minute or two then. Scorch it. We don't want that. Okay. So now that that has thickened, I'm going to take a few spoonfuls and put it into my beaten egg yolks. And this is called tempering. We're going to mix it in. And it really is just more gradually raising the temperature of the egg yolks. If we just dumped the egg yolks in to the pot without doing this, you could very well end up with scrambled eggs, like chunky cooked egg yolks, which of course we do not want. So now we're going to add this back in. Okay, so now we're going to do about a half teaspoon of vanilla. And you want to do this off of heat. And a half of almond extract off of the heat so that you're not cooking off the flavor. Okay, and so let's slide this over here. And I'm going to bring my crust back. Yeah, it's okay. I'm going to add our filling into crust. It smells good. It smells chocolatey. This is a heavy pot. I do a mini taste. You want to let it cool enough so that there isn't steam rising off of it. But once you get to that point, then pop it into the fridge, and we're going to let this chill for several hours, and it will be delicious. I will try to include a photo of a slice from later tonight when we dive in. So give this a try. Delicious chocolate pie recipe. Give this video, there we go, a thumbs up, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't. It's free, and it also helps out my channel, and that way you'll be notified anytime that I upload a video. Yeah, so leave me a comment if you have any questions or things to consider. Until next time, thanks for being here. Have a great day, and I'll see you later. Bye. Angle of the wave. There we go. Bye.